Hello, everybody. So we are doing a quick lunch and learn, a midday lunch and learn. As you see myself, Latanya Moore, you see Mario Brown. We want to talk about back to school, what every parent needs to know about dealing with school administrators and school officials. And we have the pleasure of having Miss Tabia Cook, who is joining us. She is a licensed professional counselor here in Huntsville, Alabama. She has her own practice. I'm going to pitch it to her, but I'm just so happy, really, guys, to have Tabia here because she has a very unique perspective outside of having her own business. So before we kind of jump right in, Tabia, can you kind of talk to everybody a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes. As Latanya said, I am a licensed professional counselor in the Huntsville area. I have a private practice named Inner Healing Counseling, LLC. I offer health insurance. I accept health insurance for your sessions. I have experience working with adolescents and adults, treating things like anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, and things of that nature. You can actually check out my website to gain a little bit more insight about what I do and how long I've been doing it at www.innerhealing-counseling.com.
Good.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So again, thank you so much, Tabia. I know that you are very, very busy, but I wanted to just share with you guys, we wanted to do this. It's kind of like a lunch break, lunchtime, because we know that school has just started. So I reached out to Tabia and I asked her, just had a conversation with her about just some different things that have been kind of coming across my desk with parents having anxiety about their children going back to school. When you think about things like bullying, situations with overcrowding in the classroom. So we have all these other issues that are going on. And so I asked Tabia about being a part of this discussion, just to really talk about, how can you relate to your adolescent when they're dealing with these types of things, right? So we're going to talk about 4 areas. We're going to talk about being alert, being active, being appropriate, right? But also being assertive, because those are going to be the 4 main areas that you really have to think about when dealing with your child's school, but also what are the things that you need to do when moving forward. So I want to kind of start with, we always hear about bullying, right? And so we're going to save that for just a little bit later, but I want to start with, to be a Mario, of course, you guys know Mario. I don't have to tell you guys anything much about him, but I'm going to say this, and I suggest this all the time. If you are dealing with any type of anxiety, or you just want to, have a session to kind of go over how you should deal with things, especially when it comes to things that you're noticing about your adolescent, certainly please feel free to reach out to Mario. Most of you probably know his website, mariocbrown.org. He is all things life. So love it, love it, love it. But wanted to make sure that I threw that out there as well. But one of the things, though, I wanted to talk about, though, is being alert and understanding what are these things, the different things to look for. Because we had so many children last year. We had kids in this area, and Huntsville is a pretty tame city, right? And so, there were lots of things that happened during the school year last year that was just odd, for our area. And so that's why I wanted us to talk about it. One of those, of course, garnered national attention when you had a young man who committed suicide. And so, Mario, Tabia, what are some things, or either one of you, what are some things that parents can do? Because oftentimes when your kids are adolescents, they don't want you in their room. They don't want you looking through their stuff. They're not going to really share things with you that maybe they used to share when they were 10 or 11. So what are some things that parents can look for? I'll start with you, Tabia. What are some things that parents can look for that can put them on alert that something may be wrong with their teen?
The first thing I would say is a change in their behavior. Because as you just said, most kids aren't going to come to you and say, hey, mom, someone is bullying me. And some kids don't quite all the time know how to identify certain things as bullying, because you have cyberbullying and you have people taunting and teasing on social media. Some of them may not see that as bullying, although we know that it is a form of cyberbullying. But oftentimes you will notice a change in kids' behaviors. They may become a little bit more withdrawn, or they may not be as engaged. They may not be interested in hanging around the same kids that they were before. So any type of change in their behavior, if they become more withdrawn, a little bit more sad, if you notice that they're sleeping more instead of being active, if they don't really have a desire to do much, that's definitely worth, taking a deeper look into and having those types of conversations to see, hey, what's going on? You're not quite acting like yourself. Can you tell me a little bit about what's been going on with you? How are you feeling?
And Mario, so to Bia's point about approaching your child, I know this is what you do all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
How to navigate that conversation. So let's just kind of piggyback on some of the things that Tabia talked about. So parent, they're alert, they're noticing those things. And so now they're saying, okay, my child won't talk to me. Because that's usually what happens with teenagers. For those of us that have ever parented a teenager, right? At some point, they don't even want to talk to you. So Mario, talk about how a parent may approach that situation and start to open that dialogue and navigate that conversation.
Okay. Tabia makes some great points. I think one of the most important things is not to minimize teenage behavior. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you think that withdrawing is, that's just teenage stuff. That's what teenagers do. I think that being totally alert and keeping the lines of communication open at all times. I think all parents need to figure out how to approach their children based on their personalities. Because if they get to that place, you may have one that's very expressive and the other child may be always internal anyway. So you have to figure out a time, a space, how to get that space cultivated where they feel comfortable divulging even, private information. There's a way to do that each parent who knows their child has to cultivate that to say, okay, this one I need to take out to get something to eat, or this one I need to take shopping, and then get that conversation going. They have to know. One of the things I learned about children of all ages, really, they need to know that there's a non-judgmental space created, that they can say what they need to say and almost be assured, too, that you're going to remain in control. A lot of kids I've talked to at my church and those that I've encountered, well, I didn't say nothing because I know how my mama can be. I just know how she gonna be. She gonna come up to the school. She gonna be trying to turn it out. She gonna be setting it off. And I ain't gonna be
one of those moms.
And so I think that parents have to develop a preamble. They have to establish the terms of the agreement is that I'm not going to overreact, that I just want to know what's going on. And it can't even be the whole thing about, mama love you, so you can tell your mama anything. That doesn't soothe them. You have to really.
Not to say no, mama just telling them that.
Well, and they need to really know. I think that they really need to know that you're going to be objective in hearing what's being said and not minimize it. The other thing I think is knowing their personality. What is the best way to approach this child? Like, take that into consideration. Like, what is their personality and how do I best? You may need some help with that. And that's where we're offering today is let's think about your child's personality. And then let's help you cultivate a plan by, first of all, dialing you down, because, that mama thing starts and sometimes they're heightened. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, who bothered you? Who did it? And, and so, but I think that's important. I think that, being able to help parents train. I think a lot of times what we see, and both of you all know this, we see parents desiring to help and they want a result. Approaching it has always been the problem. Not only approaching it with school officials, but approaching it with the child. So we always say, well, let's have a workshop and tell parents what to recognize. But rarely do we stop and say, but let's help them cultivate a style in which they approach that. So I
right. And that's why, yes. And that's why I want us to dedicate a little bit of time in a minute to talk about that. But I also want to encourage one thing that you both bring up. You do bring up about how to approach a child and understanding that your child is different, and you really have to sort of modify your natural inclination, right, to protect. And it's not just moms, it's daddies.
Absolutely.
It's daddies too. It just seems like mom's a little more vocal, but in my opinion, you better watch the daddy that's coming up there, because that is going to be few words. Mom is loud and she'll probably go ahead about her business, but dad's going to get some answers that day, right? And I know we're going to talk about that. But what I really would want to know too is, what about the parent who does that, right? And let's say that they have the child, because I was one of those parents, right? My son was comfortable coming to me, but he would always say, Mama, just don't go to the school. Like everything that was in, like, I wanted to do, it was just like, please, Mama, don't say nothing. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean don't say anything? So how do you help the parent cope with just holding on to that information and like being comfortable honoring their child's wishes? Because oftentimes kids will ask their parents, well, don't go to the school, or don't say nothing, or you just gonna make it hard for me, and this, that, and the other. And I'm saying that because I know it's gonna be parents that's watching this that's in that very situation. And the concern that I have is, if something happens, that parent is gonna have a high level of guilt. So I'm gonna kind of ask you first, like, what advice do you give to the parent that they've done those things that you mentioned, and now they're in a position where the child has pretty much just begged them, like, Mama don't say anything, or Dad don't say anything? What advice would you give?
The only advice I would give, because I'm a mom and I know it's going to be nearly impossible for the parents to do nothing at all. Talk to your child about what they're comfortable with you doing. Mm-hmm. Get their input, get their feedback. A lot of times you can get through to them just by asking them, how can I help you through this? And honoring their wishes from there. If your child is being bullied, we're not just going to leave it at, okay, you're being bullied, I'm not going to do anything. I would not recommend nor advise that. But do it in a way in which your child is comfortable. So then the next time something like that happens, they'll know, well, I can go to Mom about this. I can go to Dad about this. And they're not going to blow up. They're going to hear me out. They're going to respect what it is that I'm saying. So anytime I have an issue, no matter if it's bullying or whatever, I can go to them because they understand. They respect my wishes. They respect my boundaries,
Absolutely. I got to piggyback. That's exactly what I would say too, is ask them to advise you. Mm-hmm. You kind of switch that role around. You advise me on what you think I should do. And if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Believe it or not, kids have an ability to then shift and say, wow, what would I do? Because I know I want to be protected and I want some help. And it puts them back in a position, I think, where they now feel that, wow, they want to hear. That's the first step. They want to hear me. They're really listening, not just to what happened to me, whether that's I felt uncomfortable with a teacher touching me, or there's something that was said to me, not only just a bullying, but an adult did something that I know is wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's, but when you say to them, okay, I understand how you feel, and I do understand that, this could be, something you're uncomfortable with. So tell me what you think my first step should be. If you were me, what would you do?
Yeah.
That kind of always changes their dynamic. Like, wow, okay, so now I'm involved in the process. Yeah. Now, for those who are too small to do that, then we ain't gonna worry about that. We got to take matters into our own hand.
Well, let me tell y'all. let me just tell y'all a quick story, because I know our time is limited, because we doing a quick and dirty lunch and learn, right? But let me tell y'all a quick story, because I had a situation where something had happened with my son, and he told me about it. And I was supposed to be at the school the following day just for something else. And the particular person who it dealt with was like a AVP, like an assistant vice principal at their particular school. That's kind of how the structure was. And when I saw this person, I said, hey, do you have a couple of minutes before I leave? I'd like to chat with you about something. Now, he didn't know me from, Adam's, house cat, right? And he said yes. So when I approached him, he said, well, my first